The room was quiet, too quiet for a place where the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat. This was the Grand Council chamber of the United Galactic Alliance. Bright lights above gave the room a cold, white glow. 12 alien leaders sat around a wide round table made of crystal and metal. But one chair, marked with the Earth symbol, was empty. It had been empty for over 50 years. No one spoke about Earth anymore. No one dared. But today the silence felt heavier than usual. High Chancellor Vel Zarak, a tall insectoid creature with silver wings, finally broke the silence. There has been a breach in Archive Sector 7. Someone accessed classified war files, human files. Gasps filled the room. Even the oldest members looked shocked. "Do we know who it was?" asked Councillor Tharn, a four-eyed being with skin like burning coal. An officer in training. Young. Naive. From the Varnith Academy. Name: Teregson. Another pause. Then someone whispered, "He doesn't know what he's done." But Teregson did know. At least he felt something was wrong. It had started as a small assignment. He was told to organize old war data, but in the middle of boring files and reports, he found one folder marked in red: Human Engagements, Do Not Open. He opened it. At first, he didn't understand. Videos played in black and white, showing humans fighting alien forces 10 times their size. In battle after battle, humans looked weak, outnumbered, underdressed, and yet they always won. Not through brute strength, but through tricks, traps, and plans so strange that they made no sense. Until it was too late. In one video, a single human soldier led a whole enemy army into a canyon. Then he vanished. Seconds later, the canyon exploded. Thousands died. That soldier, he walked away. In another, human pilots flew their ships directly into enemy engines, on purpose. Suicide runs, just to stop bigger ships. Teregson watched in horror and awe. Who were these creatures? He found one quote in a human captain's final message: "We don't fight to win. We fight so they never want to fight us again." The words gave him chills. Back in the council chamber, Vel Zarak leaned forward. "We erased their name from our records. We removed their flag from our halls. But we never forgot. We only hoped others would." Councillor Tharn shook his head slowly. What if he tells others? What if the young believe Earth was misunderstood? They were monsters, snapped a councillor. Brilliant monsters. Teregson couldn't sleep. He kept seeing those human eyes in the videos. Calm, cold, unshaken by death. Not proud, not angry, just ready. Ready to die. Ready to kill. He returned to the archives the next day, looking for more. This time, he found audio files. Galactic generals screaming, begging for help. "We can't stop them. They think like no other species. They don't retreat. They don't surrender." He saw footage of planets burning, cities gone, and then silence. The war ended just like that. Earth didn't lose. They just stopped, walked away, and the council banned them from ever joining another war. Why? Teregson asked his mentor, an old historian named Velman. "Young one," Velman said, "do you know why Earth was banned?" "They were dangerous," Teregson replied. "But smart." Velman gave a sad smile. "You are not wrong, but there's more. They were too human. Too human. They felt pain but kept going. They were kind until pushed, and when they were pushed too far, they broke. And when humans break, they break the universe with them." Teregson left the academy that night and boarded a small ship. He wanted to see Earth's sector. It was marked as restricted, uninhabitable. But why? What if someone was still there? The stars around the old Earth zone felt different. Cold, empty, almost afraid. His ship's sensors picked up debris fields, broken satellites, ruins of defense stations. It looked like something had wiped it all clean. Then, deep in the blackness, A signal pinged. One word. Survivor. His hand shook. Could it be true? Back at the council chamber, alarms started to ring. A new alert appeared. Unauthorized ship in the forbidden sector. Velzerek stood. Send a scout fleet. Make sure he finds nothing. Or no one. In the dark of space, Terexen moved closer to the signal. He didn't notice the small red light blinking on his dashboard. You are not alone. Something was watching him. Something. Awake. And waiting. The journey continues. Terexen's ship glided through the dark space near the remnants of Earth's zone. The signal was getting stronger. He checked the coordinates. It was coming from the coordinates of Earth's last known military fleet. But how could it still be there? The discovery. Terexen's sensors picked up something strange. Out of the darkness, an old ship appeared, its edges battered, its hull cracked and scarred from battles long past. The vessel's engines were still humming faintly, its systems seemingly alive. The human ship, once thought lost in the Great Wars, had survived. Approaching the ship, Terexen's curiosity overwhelmed him. The Council's orders echoed in his mind. Nothing human remains. Yet here it was, a living piece of human history. He couldn't resist. He approached it, his ship's engines barely making the sound. Boarding the ghost ship, Terexen docked on the ship's exterior, its metal creaking in the cold vacuum. He stepped inside through a sealed hatch. The air was thick with dust. The ship's interior was dark and silent, as though time had frozen. Terexen's footsteps echoed through the empty corridors, a silent reminder. He moved cautiously, finding rows of old weapons, battle maps, and worn-out datapads. He could feel the weight of a history long forgotten, the smell of burnt metal and oil still lingering. But the most unsettling thing of all was the eerie quiet. There were no signs of life. A cryopod. In the deepest part of the ship, Terexen stumbled upon something that sent a cold shiver down his spine. An old cryopod, still active, its display blinking with life support readings. He stepped closer. The pod opened with a soft hiss, and inside, a figure lay in suspended animation. The general awakens. The figure inside the cryopod stirred. The man inside, despite the years of hibernation, was muscular and tall, his face etched with scars and wisdom. He opened his eyes slowly, revealing the deep, cold blue. Then he blinked as if waking from a long, endless nightmare. The first words. The man spoke in a voice as rough as gravel, but sharp and clear. Is the war over? Terexen froze. He had expected many things, but this man, this human, didn't look lost or confused. He was calm, composed, and he didn't seem surprised to find himself on a dead ship in the middle of nowhere. Who was he? The man stepped out of the pod and adjusted his old military uniform. He didn't appear weak or frail from the long sleep. He was different. A warrior. A general. His movements were precise, like a man who had never forgotten a battle. A cold reunion. Terexen stammered. You're alive. I thought humans. The general's expression darkened. Thought we were extinct. He scanned the surroundings, noticing the decayed ship. No, we never went extinct. We were left to rot. You should have finished us off when you had the chance. Terexen felt a chill in his spine. There was something in the general's words that struck a nerve. Something in his eyes spoke of battles no one had dared to remember. A message to the galaxy. As Terexen tried to process what was happening, the general moved to the ship's communication deck. Without hesitation, he activated the old systems. This is General Cal of Earth. I demand an audience with the Galactic Council, and this time, I'll speak for the entire human race. The plan. Terexen was taken aback. A human, alive and still demanding attention after all this time. But there was something compelling about Cal's confidence, something that made Terexen feel as if humanity's absence from the galaxy was more of a mistake than a punishment. A dangerous decision. Kale turned to him, a fierce glint in his eye. "You're the first to see me. But soon, the Council will hear my voice. And when they do, they will remember exactly why they banned us. I'll give them a choice they won't forget." The Council reacts. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos as Cal's transmission blared through their speakers. Councillor Velzerak slammed his fist on the table, his insectoid face twisted in fury. "We can't allow this. He's a relic, a dangerous one." But a few of the older council members looked uneasy. They remembered Earth's military prowess. They had seen firsthand how terrifying humans could be in war. The call for action. "We should end this before it escalates," Councillor Tharn proposed. "We still have fleets in place. We can destroy this human threat before it spreads." But the suggestion was met with fierce resistance. "No," Velzerak snarled. "We can't risk provoking him further. He's already awakened. He's out there, and he's dangerous. Let him speak." Cal's strategy. Back on the human warship, General Cal watched the frantic response from the Council on a small monitor. He wasn't afraid. He had survived wars that had torn entire civilizations apart. But this was different. The Council didn't know what he was capable of. They didn't know what he was holding back. Cal's mind was already working, calculating the next move. The Council didn't know it, but they had made a huge mistake. They had awakened the wrong part of him. Cal's offer. Cal sent another transmission to the Galactic Council, his voice calm but laced with threat. "I don't want war. I want answers. Why was Earth erased from your history? Why were we banned from your wars? You feared us, and now you will face the truth." Tregzen's realization. Tregzen, still unsure of what he had gotten himself into, sat by Cal's side. "You don't want war?" Tregzen asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You just woke up an entire galaxy with a single transmission." Cal looked at him, his expression unreadable. "War is never the goal. War is the consequence. I'm offering them a chance to explain themselves. If they refuse, then we'll see who the real monsters are." Tregzen didn't know whether to be terrified or fascinated. Cal's words were calm, but there was an undeniable power in them. The general wasn't just threatening the Council, he was making them think. And that, in itself, was dangerous. The monster reveals itself. As the days passed, the Council debated whether to send a fleet to stop Cal, but every time they considered it, they remembered the battles of old. The human tactics, simple but deadly, were unlike anything they had ever seen. Tregzen watched as Cal made his final preparations. He saw the general standing before a holographic map of the galaxy, his finger tracing the outlines of old human colonies. "They think we're weak because they've never seen what we're capable of when pushed to the edge," Cal said. "When they made us vanish, they made a mistake they will regret." The first test. Then it happened. A fleet of alien ships entered Earth's old sector, just as Cal had expected. But what the fleet didn't expect was the trap they had walked into. Cal activated a dormant system within the warship, an ancient automated defense network designed for one thing: defense. Within moments, the enemy fleet found themselves trapped in a series of invisible barriers. The ships couldn't escape, they couldn't fire, and they couldn't understand what was happening. The trap closes. The fleet was helpless. Tregzen watched in awe as Cal worked the systems effortlessly. The general's plan unfolded like a deadly puzzle. No explosions, no firing, just a perfect containment. One by one, the alien ships were surrounded and locked down, completely powerless. Cal's voice came over the comms. "You can either surrender now or stay here forever. The choice is yours." A moment of mercy. Tregzen stared at the screens. The alien fleet leaders were begging for mercy. But Cal simply turned to him and said, "They have nothing to offer us. They have never understood our power." Cal didn't destroy the fleet. He didn't even threaten them with death. He simply let them go, After proving that they were powerless against him, he showed them that humans were not just soldiers. They were something more. The Council's fear. As the fleet returned to the Council, they broadcasted their defeat. The message was clear: we cannot defeat him. He is something else. The Council was silent. Fear rippled through the ranks. They had underestimated the human spirit. They had thought humanity was just a fleeting problem, a small, weak species that had been silenced long ago. But now, the truth was undeniable. Humans were not to be trifled with. Kel's final warning. Back on his ship, Kel turned to Rexan. I've made my message clear, but they still don't understand. They don't know what happens when humans are pushed too far. He paused, a dark glint in his eyes. They will. Soon enough. The transmission cut off, and Tirexan was left standing in the silence, knowing that the galaxy had just witnessed the beginning of something far greater than they had ever anticipated. The Council in panic. The Galactic Council was shaken. After Kel's last transmission, whispers spread throughout the ranks. They had underestimated him. The decision to ban humanity had been made years ago based on fear, but no one had expected the humans to survive, let alone return. Councillor Tharn slammed his fist on the table. This is madness. We've let this go on too long. We can't allow the humans to rise again. Velzarak, though still agitated, spoke with a cold, calculating voice. The question is no longer if we can stop them, but how we stop them. Kel's influence spreads. Kel's message was spreading across the galaxy, and the people of different worlds were listening. Some alien species, who had once feared the human presence, were now intrigued. Some started questioning the ban, wondering if they had been wrong about Earth. Tirexan watched the broadcast as Kel made his intentions clear. I will not be ignored. The Council has caused this galaxy enough suffering. The time of hiding the truth is over. For Kel, it wasn't about revenge. It was about restoring what was lost. Earth. And he would make sure that no one could erase their legacy again. Kel's first move. Kel wasn't waiting for the Council to make a decision. He knew they were already too divided, so he took matters into his own hands. A small human fleet, constructed from the wreckage of old ships, was prepared for action. This wasn't an army. It was a message. A message that the humans would not back down, no matter how many years had passed. Tirexan was with him, unsure but determined. What are we going to do? He asked. Kel looked out the viewport at the stars, his voice quiet but firm. We show them what happens when you take everything from us. We remind them of the power they try to erase. The Galactic Fleet responds. The Galactic Council had already sent a massive fleet to Earth's old sector. Their orders were clear: capture Kel alive or destroy him. But they underestimated the humans once again. When the Galactic Fleet arrived, they expected a fight. They didn't expect the humans to be waiting for them. Kel activated the warship's hidden systems, and a series of ancient automated drones, faster, stronger, and more precise than any modern military technology, appeared from the shadows. The drone fleet surrounded the galactic ships in seconds, cutting them off from their escape routes. The drones didn't attack. They didn't need to. They simply disabled the enemy ships, trapping them in place. The Galactic Fleet's desperation. Inside the command ship of the Galactic Fleet, panic began to spread. We can't move. We're locked in, one officer screamed. Another frantically tried to override the system, but it was useless. The drones were too advanced. They're playing with us, one of the commanders whispered, horrified. We've walked straight into a trap. Kel's voice came over the communication system. Consider this your final warning. This time, you will listen. You will learn why humans were feared. You will know why you should never have underestimated us. The message was clear. No matter how much technology or power the Council had, they couldn't escape human ingenuity. The galaxy watches. The confrontation wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. The galactic ships, completely immobilized, could only watch as Cal's drones executed a series of precise, non-lethal maneuvers. Each time the enemy tried to escape, the drones blocked their paths. Each time they attempted to fire, their weapons were disabled without a single shot fired from the humans. Across the galaxy, the people watched the broadcast, some in fear, some in awe. For the first time, they saw humans not as the weak, insignificant species they had been told about, but as something far more dangerous, a species that would not be taken down, no matter the odds. The Council's dilemma. As the confrontation continued, the Council debated their next move. Some wanted to send more fleets, others suggested diplomacy. But even the most powerful leaders were beginning to realize that no matter what they did, Cal had already won. Finally, Veldzarek made his decision. "We cannot let this continue," he said. "We will call for a ceasefire. We must meet with him before this escalates further." Cal's demand. Cal didn't want war. He didn't want bloodshed. He had a singular demand. The Council had to admit their mistake. Earth was no longer erased from history. They had to publicly acknowledge humanity's rightful place in the galaxy, or the standoff would continue. With the Galactic fleet helpless and surrounded by human drones, the Council had no choice but to agree to Cal's terms. But Cal's warning was clear. "This is only a preview. If you refuse to acknowledge us, this galaxy will remember the consequences of crossing humanity." A new dawn. The ceasefire was called. Cal's fleet was allowed to leave the sector without further confrontation. But the message was sent. The humans were not a species to be ignored, forgotten, or erased. And as Cal's warship slowly drifted toward the stars, the Council knew. The galaxy was on the brink of change. The humans had returned, and they had only just begun to make their presence felt. The calm before the storm. For weeks after the ceasefire, the galaxy held its breath. The Council had reluctantly acknowledged Cal's message, but whispers of revolt were already spreading. Not everyone was willing to accept humanity's return. Some species were already preparing for the inevitable confrontation, believing that the humans' demands for recognition were just the beginning. Cal, however, was patient. His warship drifted in the shadows, gathering strength, watching as the galaxy tried to figure out what to do next. Terexin stood beside Cal, watching the calm but unsettled galaxy through the viewport. "What now?" he asked, his voice full of curiosity. Cal turned to him, a knowing look in his eyes. "Now we wait. The storm is coming, but it's not yet here. The galaxy isn't ready for the change we bring." The hidden forces. Though the ceasefire had been called, not all was peaceful. Some of the older Council members were secretly rallying forces, preparing fleets to strike at Earth and its allies before humanity could solidify its place. They still viewed the humans as a threat to their dominance. In the shadows of the Council, some even began to secretly bolster their fleets, organizing covert operations to wipe out human forces once and for all. But Cal's eyes were already on them. He knew who the players were. He had been through wars like this before, and he was ready. The arrival of an unlikely ally. As tensions began to rise, a new player appeared, an alien race known as the Volrani. These beings, once neutral, had been quietly observing the events unfolding. They had no love for the Galactic Council, and Cal's rise caught their interest. The Volrani reached out to Cal, sending a small diplomatic envoy to make contact. "We've been watching," their leader, Vashira, said, her tone direct but not unfriendly. "The Council's arrogance has caused chaos for far too long. If you wish to shake things up, we are willing to stand by you." Terexin was shocked. "Are you saying you're going to join us?" Vashira nodded. "Not just join. We will support you. The galaxy is ripe for change. But if we do this, it must be now." Cal's response. Cal stood still, studying the Volrani's offer. The temptation to ally with them was great. The Volrani were known for their advanced technology, and their fleet could tip the scales in any conflict. But Cal was cautious. "You're not the only one watching," he said slowly. Others will follow soon enough. We're not here to make allies for the sake of it. We're here to restore our place in this galaxy. But the Volrani insisted, you don't have to do this alone. We can help you shake the foundation of the Council. Together, we can force the galaxy to see you as equals. Cal's eyes gleamed. You're right. But this won't be just about us anymore. This is about making sure the galaxy never forgets humanity again. The spark of rebellion. As Cal and the Volrani worked together in secret, other species began to take notice. Some were still loyal to the Council, but others started questioning their leaders. Cal's message resonated deeply with the oppressed, those who had been silenced by the Council's tyranny. In the backrooms of the galaxy's capital, word spread like wildfire. Human forces were not just survivors. They were conquerors. They had the will to take back what had been stolen from them. The galaxy's factions were torn between fear of humanity and the hope for freedom from the Council's iron grip. Cal's next move. The time had come for action. Cal wasn't waiting any longer. He had gathered a small but powerful fleet, bolstered by the Volrani and other sympathizers. They weren't going to wait for the Council to make a move. They were going to make their presence felt. Terexin stood on the bridge of Cal's warship, watching as the fleet powered up its engines. This is it, he said, his voice filled with anticipation. Cal nodded. It's time the galaxy remembers why humans were feared. We aren't here to beg for a seat at the table. We're here to take the throne. The battle for the capital. Cal's fleet emerged from hyperspace, emerging in the heart of the galactic capital. The council chambers had been prepared for a peaceful negotiation, but Cal had other plans. His fleet descended on the capital, and the skies erupted with activity. The council's ships scrambled, their defenses weak against the human strike. The Volrani's technology was unmatched, and Cal's warship was a deadly force to be reckoned with. The battle wasn't about destruction, it was about dominance. Cal wasn't here to wipe out the council. He was here to prove that humanity could never be erased again. The council's last stand. Inside the council chambers, panic ensued. Councillor Veldzerak paced furiously. This cannot be happening, he muttered. We must stop them now. But it was too late. The galactic forces were already retreating, their ships unable to match the combined might of Cal's fleet and the Volrani. Cal's voice echoed over the comms once again. The time for your reign is over. You wanted a war. You'll get one, but not from us. You'll see why humanity was always a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy's reckoning. As Cal's forces closed in on the capital, the galaxy watched in silence. Every faction, every species, was now aware of what humanity had become. The council could no longer ignore them. Cal had done what no one thought possible. He had brought humanity back, stronger than ever. And now, the galaxy would face the consequences of their actions. The storm was rising, and nothing could stop it. The fall of the council. The galactic capital was in chaos. The remnants of the council's fleets were scattered, their once mighty ships now drifting helplessly. The human fleet, reinforced by the Volrani and other sympathetic factions, had seized control. Cal stood at the heart of the warship's bridge, looking out at the burning capital. It's over, Terexin said quietly, watching the council's flagship fall into the depths of space. Cal didn't respond immediately. His mind was already on the next step. It's only the beginning, he murmured. The galaxy doesn't change overnight, but they've learned the first lesson. New alliances, new threats. While humanity's victory was swift, it wasn't without consequence. As Cal and his forces began to solidify their hold over key galactic sectors, new players emerged. Some species were eager to join the new order, while others, more fearful, began to consolidate their forces, preparing for retaliation. One of these new threats was the Shiren Collective, a race of biomechanical beings who had been monitoring humanity's rise. Led by their ruthless queen, they saw the humans' defiance as an opportunity to expand their own influence. We cannot let them build a new empire, Queen Thrissa said, addressing her commanders. Humanity's rebellion has shown the galaxy that anything is possible. We must act before they get too strong. The tension builds. Kale wasn't blind to the rising tensions. He knew that some factions, like the Shiren, would never accept humanity's newfound power. They would try to stop him, and he was ready for them. But he also knew that their resistance would be different. These weren't just military threats, they were political ones. The galaxy was now in an uncertain state. "We've won the first battle," Kale told Terexin, his voice sharp. "But we can't afford to get comfortable. There are many who will try to bring us down, and we've just given them a reason to unite." The Volrani's warning. Vashira, the leader of the Volrani, was cautious despite her initial enthusiasm. "You've done well, Kale," she said, "but be careful. The balance of power has shifted, and that's never without risk. The galaxy is full of factions that will try to reclaim what's been lost. It won't take long before they form a united front against you." Kale nodded. "I know, but they need to understand that the galaxy can't go back to what it was. We can't live under their thumb anymore. Not when we've seen what we're capable of." A test of loyalty. As the dust settled, Kale called for a gathering of all his new allies. It was time to solidify the new order, but the moment was fraught with tension. The Volrani, the human fleets, and even smaller factions like the Galrath coalition were gathered. Yet, despite the show of unity, it was clear that not all were fully on board. A faction of the Galrath suddenly made their move. They launched an attack on one of the human-held planets, hoping to seize control and test the humans' resolve. The ambush was swift and brutal. Kale stood in the war room, glaring at the newsfeed. "These fools don't understand," he muttered. "They've just given us a reason to prove we're not afraid of anyone. This rebellion won't go unpunished." Terexin looked at Kale, uncertainty in his eyes. "You can't keep fighting like this. The galaxy will never accept endless war." Kal's expression hardened. "War is inevitable. You either adapt or get crushed. This is the price of defiance." A desperate counterattack. Kale didn't waste time. He sent a full strike force to the Galrath planet, determined to show them the consequences of challenging his rule. The battle was fierce, but Kal's strategy was unrelenting. The human fleet, now bolstered by advanced Volrani technology, cut through the Galrath defenses. After hours of intense fighting, the Galrath forces were overwhelmed. Kale made sure to send a clear message. "This is what happens when you test us. We won't tolerate disobedience." The Galrath fleet, decimated, limped back to their homeworld, humiliated and broken. A shift in power. The victory was decisive, but Kal's methods were not without controversy. There were whispers throughout the galaxy. Some factions viewed his brutality as a sign of strength, while others saw it as a tyrant's rule. Terexin confronted Kale privately after the battle. "You're pushing too hard," he warned. "If we crush everyone who stands in our way, we risk losing the very people who helped us get here." Kale looked out at the stars. "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make sure humanity never suffers the way we did again. But you're right. I can't do it alone. The galaxy is a powder keg, and I'm just one match." The Shiren make their move. As Kale reflected on his strategy, the Shiren Collective finally made their move. Their fleets arrived at the edge of the galaxy, an unmistakable sign that they had been preparing for war. Queen Thrissa had made her decision. She wasn't going to sit idly by while humanity reshaped the galaxy. The Shiren fleets were massive, their biomechanical ships terrifying in their design. But Kale was prepared. He had expected this. The Shiren weren't just coming to challenge him. They were coming to claim the galaxy for themselves. Terexin looked at the incoming fleets, dread building in his chest. This is it. The real war is about to start. Kale turned to him with steely resolve. "Then let's make sure they understand. The galaxy doesn't belong to any one species. Not anymore. Not when humanity is here."